Welcome back to Unapologetic Living. I am honored to have GAPS coach Emma of Timeless Cookery. It's an online cookery on the show today. Welcome, Emma.
Hey, how you doing, Elizabeth?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, thanks.
I'm glad we connected because I know with the time difference, with you being in London and me being in Kentucky, I was a little mixed up until I found my online world clock on the Apple phone. So thank goodness for that. So I know that you help people overcome disease, and I
It's a
love that.
pretty broad, sweeping
Uh,
statement, isn't it?
I know it is. But I found the GAPS for those who aren't familiar. It stands for Gut and Psychology Syndrome, right? I found this book years ago, and I don't even really can't recall why. And it wasn't something. A lot of it made sense, but that isn't something that my family necessarily took to right away at all. I mean, definitely implemented certain things. So can you talk a little bit about the GAPS diet, your story, how you became a GAPS coach? Like what
Yeah, sure.
inspired this journey for you?
Okay, well, uh, my me and my kids were sick. Boom. I said so everyone starts. A lot of people in this game start because they're sick or their kids are sick, don't they? So I had grown up with a very loving mother who cooked from scratch, who, always put food on the table, good food on the table, always had a stock pot. But we still had things like flour and margarine and salad cream and white bread in the house. And when I was growing up, I used to have hiccups incessantly and bad tummy ache. Every morning I'd wake up in the morning and I'd have tummy ache. And my mum would say, "Oh yes, dear, you need to have your breakfast. You'll feel all right. You need to go to the toilet. You'll be all right when you've been to the toilet." Like she didn't have any answers for me, but I had this constant tummy ache. I know now that it was probably vaccine damage, but is what it is. It's a thing. Anyway, I kind of got on with my life until I hit the age of 28 in London at drama school. I'd been to drama school. I was now a professional actress working in TV, playing a doctor on a medical drama, funnily enough. And I had a complete mental breakdown, a complete emotional meltdown where I just couldn't stop crying for months. I mean, months. I'd wake up every morning and just start crying. My eyes swelled up like burger buns. Do you know what I mean? I was in a mess, and I felt worthless, penniless, friendless, loveless, everything less. And yet I had a nice place in London, and I was working as an actress. And from the outside, people would have looked in and thought, "Well, she's okay." Anyway, I inadvertently fasted because I couldn't eat. I didn't understand at that point about the food as the medicine. But every time I tried to eat, I just burst into tears. So I couldn't eat. So I didn't eat and I got really skinny and everyone around me was getting really worried. And but then I kind of just like came out of the depression with fasting by accident and carried on with my life, got into yoga, got into meditation, met my husband on a job, an acting job. We had two beautiful kids. So when I had my kids, I think it just sucked the last energy out of me. And by the time I had my second kid, uh, I was on my knees. I couldn't walk. I had to come downstairs on my backside. Um, the depression had come back, but not so bad. And my babies were not well. My kids weren't well. They were endless snotty noses, ear infections, miserable, crying all the time. And basically, I was at my wit's end. And I thought, is this my life? I felt like my life was over and I was only like 35. And I really had no energy. I was finished at 4 o'clock every evening. Every afternoon, that's me. I was finished. I had to just go and lie down. 4 o'clock, finished. Wake up, whatever time with the baby through the night. And anyway. And then by some fluke, by some lucky accident, happy accident, I saw Dr. Natasha on YouTube talking about the microbiome. And just something in my brain just went ding, 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 go and buy that book. So I got the book. I read it. Immediately, I could see what had happened to me, what was happening to my kids. It was all crystal clear to me, absolutely crystal clear. I was weeping with tears of relief to have found the solution in the book. Then I tried to implement the GAPS nutritional protocol, which is a bit like French cuisine. You know, it's really lush, delicious, rich, satisfying foods. It's not like a restrictive diet by any stretch of the imagination. And I tried to implement the diet for 5 years. I did pretty well. I did okay, but I missed some really crucial parts of the mix. And then, long story short, I trained to become a GAPS coach, got the missing pieces, got the keys, and then went, right, okay, I need to make this easy for other people. Because when I was an exhausted mum with hyper kids, sugar monster kids who just all they wanted to eat was beige food, and they didn't give me eye contact, and they would beat me up if I didn't give them the Cheerios or whatever. I realized that there's so many other women that were in that situation. I needed to make it easy for them to do what I had done and get off the grains, get off the sugar, get off the opiates of the masses, as I call them, because then the kids come back to you. The kids come back. They start looking at you. The ASD symptoms start melting away. The ADHD starts melting away. The OCD starts melting away. The autistic spectrum disorder, hyperactivity and obsessive compulsive behaviors and things, they melt away when you get off the sugar. It's like a drug. So yeah, that's long and short of it. I mean, my kids have gone through tics, ticking, twitching, Tourette's. We had a tumor on Billy's cheek. It was a pilomatrixoma. I know now that was oxalate related. Yeah, we had bedwetting up till a very late time, and tantrums and traumas and just all sorts of horribleness. My life when the kids were little, I felt was very strained. And now we have a peaceful, patient, contented, calm, joyful, friendly, supportive, lovely family dynamic. Whereas when their kids were growing up, it was hectic, hangry, crazy, like what's going to happen next, meltdowns, tantrums, scary. I was scared, and I felt like a terrible parent, felt like a terrible mother. And now I've devoted my life to helping mothers get into that space of peace and calm in the kitchen by applying the principles of the GAPS protocol. I've made it really simple, 5-minute jobs, just easy, gentle, one step at a time. Don't take on too much. Don't try and do it perfectly. Relax into it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think when I found it, it seemed a little bit more overwhelming. And again, I haven't looked at the book in a long time. I think it probably, along with Nourishing Traditions and Weston Price's work, definitely
It's
inspired.
very closely related. Very.
Yeah, the bone broths and the fermented foods. I got a big sauerkraut crock, but didn't necessarily implement. I don't even recall what, and then they get older, and that's when we probably really fell off. Not necessarily, like the kids are always getting fruits and vegetables and raw, not necessarily cooked. But when the sports and the activities, we started to pop in that frozen pizza here and there. It was just, it was like 9 o'clock at night, and I was a single mom, and it just wasn't happening, and they don't necessarily want. I find one of the big issues even today, like with my 18-year-old, as these kids go out to eat more, right? Once they get those wheels and they have their own money, obviously, right, we have less control. Not that that's what we want, but we do have less. And they go to the gas station for the flurry or the slushy or what, the red stuff that's frozen. And they pop through the fast food, and it literally changes so when they come home for real food, That doesn't sound good. I definitely see that because a lot of what, um, my partner and I eat is just, golly, plain hamburgers with salt, some cucumbers, some tomatoes. We have the raw cheese. And I don't even know if those are on the GAPS protocol, but that doesn't sound that good, right? When it's not over seasoned to a lot of palates. And so you almost have to retrain. And I haven't mastered it, because, I have two kids who, that doesn't sound good. So they
At
don't.
that age, it's all over, frankly. At that age, unless you're in agreement with them that you're on a mission to solve a problem or to overcome some pain, and pain is a great motivator, let's face it. But, ideally, you start this journey before you even get pregnant.
Right.
Geez, we need to build the babies of really strong stuff. I just want to point out the difference between bone broth and meat stock,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
we don't want bone broth.
Okay.
Everyone always says, "Oh yeah, GAPS bone broth." It's like, no, it's meat stock, and that's quicker and easier to make, more tasty, and it's full of amino acids, gelatin, and collagen. Whereas bone broth is a kind of mineral thing. Bone broth is bones cooked for a long time, and you get something that is quite high in glutamic acid, and glutamic acid resembles monosodium glutamate,
Oh,
which is an excitotoxin, which we've got to be careful. If you've got symptoms of neurological issues, whatever that might be, you don't want an excitotoxin in the mix. It's going to make things worse. So bone broth is not for you if you've got ADHD or ASD or any kind of, you know, those kind of symptoms, or anxiety or depression. And I mean, it was originally published, GAPS, to help as natural treatment for those things, gut and psychology syndrome. But since Dr. Natasha started her clinic and started to help the kids with ASD, she was, surprised and happy to find that the parents were coming back and saying, well, my headaches are gone, and my arthritis doesn't seem to be here anymore, and like all their symptoms were going as well, because she always insisted that the whole family do GAPS. You don't just do GAPS just for the one kid with the symptoms or whatever. Every GAPS baby comes from a GAPS mum, because it's about the microbiome. It's about your gut bugs, and whatever gut bugs you've given to your offspring, you're all in the same boat. So we do it as a family. Also, if there's biscuits in the house, and crackers and whatever, if there's sweet stuff in the house and you've got one person who's not supposed to be eating it, it's like torture. It's like absolute torture. So yeah, we do it as a family. And we want meat stock, which is the whole chicken or the whole leg of lamb or the whole short beef ribs or whatever, in the pot with water, salt, maybe a little bit of veg just for flavor, like a carrot, onion, celery, maybe a few peppercorns, but we're not going to eat them, right? And that's just for flavor. And then you'll cook that just until the meat falls off the bone. That's the rule of thumb. Maybe an hour and a half for a chicken, or maybe 2 hours for something a bit more meaty. And that's going to give you meat stock. And that is the kingpin of the GAPS protocol. And if you can keep a good stock pot, you're basically 80% of the way there, because it's stock that heals the gut. So you can drink that stock like tea. You just make a cup of tea, just get it out with a ladle, put it in a cup, boom. It's like, that's a gut healing thing. You can jazz it up with a splash of sauerkraut juice or some cider vinegar, or you can jazz it up with an egg yolk, which will give you wonderful choline, cholesterol, all the good vitamins. A raw egg yolk, you just whisk it in. It'll make it creamy and delicious. Put in an extra knob of butter, put in an extra knob of cultured cream or something. You can add bits of chicken to it as well if you want. Maybe some fermented garlic. I don't know. You can just literally put it in the cup and go, oh, I'll add this, I'll add, whatever you feel like that day. You could have it a bit more acid with the vinegar, or you can have it a bit richer with the cream, depending on how you're feeling.
So
So you want to drink.
real quick, would you strain the meat out?
Yeah, once it's cooked, you want to pick the meat off the bones and stick it in the fridge.
Okay,
But keep all the connective tissue, the skin, the bones, the gristle, all the oopy bits, get that back in the pot.
okay.
And as you take out from the pot, you're adding a bit more water and a bit more salt. And every day you just boil it up again for 10
Oh, so you
minutes.
just keep it going.
I just keep it going. I keep one chicken going for maybe 5-6 days.
Okay, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah. So I'll maybe do 1 or 2 stock pots a week. Maybe. I mean, sometimes I'll jazz up a stock pot by throwing in a couple of lamb chops on top of the chicken carcass once I've picked the meat off. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
To zhuzh it up a bit. But yeah, it's like a cauldron. It's like the magic cauldron of power potion. It's always there. It's always ready for you to just have a cup of stock, or you're ready to cook the evening meal. And you're like, oh my God, what are we going to have to eat? Okay, let's have a look in the cupboard. What have we got? You're like, okay, I've got a leek and a cauliflower or whatever. What veg have you got? Chop it up, chuck it in the pan with some good fat. So, good fat means saturated fat. That means fat that sets hard at room temperature, and we mean animal fats. Like coconut oil's okay, palm oil's okay, but why send a boy to do a man's job? Because it's the animal fats that are going to get you better quickest. So we want tallow, beef fat, or lard, pig fat. We want goose fat. We want lamb fat. We want schmaltz from the chicken. We want butter. We want ghee. Saturated fat. A big portion of saturated fat is in there with your vegetables. Then put some stock in it. Get some of your stock in the pan with your veg.
Mhm.
Steam fry it. So the veg is, steam frying in that fat and in that stock. Eventually, all the stock is going to evaporate, leaving the flavor, the amino acids, the collagen, the gelatin, And then, okay, we've got some veg. It's cooked. It's covered with good stuff. It's looking quite nice. Maybe it's a bit seared on the edges in your pan, Let's add some of the chicken from the stock, some of the meat from the chicken. So let's throw that in with the already cooked veg, maybe season it with an extra big knob of butter and a little bit of fermented garlic. That's a meal. It took 15 minutes. People will be like, where's the pasta? Where's the rice? Where's my bread? You'll find that when you start to let go of the sugars, that you actually don't need them and you don't crave them. And when you do eat them, they actually cost you energy. Because when your body is metabolizing these starchy carbs, these polysaccharides, it takes a lot of energy, and it also takes a lot of minerals. So you've got honey is a sweet thing. It's a monosaccharide. It's just like it's like a oneer on the Lego. I don't know if you do. Do you have Lego?
Yeah, we do have
Yeah,
Lego.
right. Lego. Yeah. So it's like a oneer. And then you've got fructose and sucrose and glucose, which are disaccharides. So they're like a twoer. Your body has to split those in two before it can use them properly. Yeah. And then you've got polysaccharides, which are the starches like rice, like grains, like, potato, that kind of thing. And they're loads of sugars. And that takes a lot of minerals and a lot of energy for your body to make it into loads of oneers. Right. So when you stop eating them, suddenly you've got more energy. And you're not so demineralized. So your body doesn't get that kind of, I've got to eat something because I need the minerals. Because oftentimes we're eating because we just need minerals. So what we're doing is having a lot of fats. We're getting a lot of minerals from the stock pot and a lot of amino acids and collagen and gelatin. It's very satisfying and very soothing and very healing. We're getting most of our energy from the fats. Yeah, the vegetables are just vehicle for
Mm.
You know, you're gonna, you've got those lovely well cooked veg, all soft and lovely, a little bit, you know, a little bit browned on the outside, all covered with melted butter and, you know, fermented garlic with the lovely bits of chicken. Maybe you've put a bit of grated parmesan on top if you like, you know. Eat a few bowls of that, you'll be perfectly satisfied. It's like French cuisine. Maybe stir in some cultured cream at the end if you like, you know. You don't need the bread, you don't need the rice, you don't need the crackers, you don't need the pasta.
Now, when you say cultured cream, would that be buttermilk over here? Or
Well,
raw cream?
what we do is we ferment all our dairy on gaps, which is one of those things people go, oh my God, I can't face it, making your own yogurt, making your own cultured cream or whatever. But it's just ridiculously simple once you get the hang of it.
Mhm.
You know, once you're in the habit of doing it, it's like, oh yeah, I forgot to put the cream on. Cream, start a culture, put the lid on and go. Come back in 24 hours and it's ready.
And now, is that
Yogurt maker.
okay, thank you, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I definitely attempted some yogurt back when the kids were small and I was getting, and it must have been either, um, prompted by either the Weston A. Price or Gaps, but I was making it part of it. And then I got a dehydrator. I was doing all these things, uh, back when the kids were smaller. And then, life gets busy. Um, so now when right before I interrupted on whether you include the meat, you were about to say drink three, like the broth or the meat
oh
stock.
yeah,
You
three
drink
to
that,
five, 3 to 5 cups a day, ideally.
like for the rest of your life.
Well, you know, no, nobody ever does that. But you know, people might have heard of GAP's intro and the stages, which is another thing that people get confused about. And they're like, oh, I don't know what to eat and when's what and when to do this and when to do the other. But if you think of the stock pot as the kingpin, then that's where we start. So if you're really, really, really sick, what do they usually say when you're really sick? They say, go to bed and drink broth. We don't want broth, we want meat stock, but you know what I'm saying. They
Yeah.
say bed and broth, don't they? Right. So remember that starting point. If you're really, really sick, you want to drink 3 to 5 cups of stock a day, maybe with an egg yolk in it, maybe with some cultured cream or whatever, right? Nobody ever does that for very long, but 3 days of doing that will rebuild a broken gut lining and heal and seal the tight junctions that have become loose between the epithelial cells. So 3 days of drinking broth and just having the gelatinous meats and just having fats and maybe some very well cooked vegetables for 3 days, that's GAP's intro. Doesn't sound that bad, you know?
Oh, okay. So you would rip the Band-Aid off and take out the grains and the pastas and
Look, you know, if you've got somebody with bleeding bowels, or you've got somebody, you know, a non-verbal autistic child who's self-harming and defecating and, you know, banging their head on the rough floor or whatever, you're going to need drastic measures. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, you
right,
just take
yeah,
everything out. It's
yeah.
like if you know, you're in such a bad way that you feel as though your life is ending. You're in so much pain, you know, whatever. Drastic measures. I don't suggest everybody goes into GAPS intro. It's not, you know, it's a challenging thing to do, and I don't suggest people to do it, especially not without guidance, because these days we've got to consider things like oxalates. And if you know, a lot of people um, go into intro and then stay on extended stage 2, which is bringing in eggs and dairy, 24-hour fermented dairy, um, and they'll stay there for a little while with no fresh fruit or veg and no grains, which that's where all the oxalates are. So there'll be no oxalate in their diet for some weeks, some months, and they're feeling great and they're going along fine and everything's groovy. And then suddenly they have this big crash where, I don't know, lots of things can hit them. It manifests in a myriad of different ways, but what it is the body suddenly has enough energy with all of those nutrient dense foods you're eating to get the oxalates out, and they call it dumping. oxalate dumping is not funny. Getting oxalates out of your body is not funny. It can manifest as interstitial cystitis, plantar fasciitis, like when your feet feel like you're walking on glass,
Mhm,
vulvodynia, when
mhm.
you can't have sex and it's it's very painful down there. Kidney stones, uh, yeah,
Is gout,
kidney
gout fall in there? Like,
gout, yes, or pseudo gout they call it, because yeah, exactly, gout, or terrible migraines, or terrible, it comes out of your skin and you suddenly have all of these like open sores on your skin, or terrible itching and you just don't know what to do with it. So there's, yeah, there's you don't want to jump into intro unless you've got some guidance, really.
okay, so you could experience some of these like side effects, even those
Depend
first few days.
Do you know what I've noticed that it's often people who've been keto,
Mm,
people who've done keto for any length of time. If they've done like, oh yeah, I've done 6 months or a year on keto, and they're like feeling great and everything, and then they go, right, I'm going to take it to the next level. Let's go carnivore-ish, or no plant gaps, and then keto tends to favor a lot of spinach, a lot of almonds, a lot of
mm.
almond milk and chocolate things. Um, Sweet potatoes. Do they do sweet potatoes on keto or not? No, I know not. But sweet potatoes are a high oxalate food.
Right, yeah, and I know, back in the day, as my journey's evolved, I've eliminated the sweet potatoes when trying to decrease the oxalates
Mm.
in my diet. And
Good
yeah,
thinking.
all these things that I was doing for a while are now I've removed, like the almond milk.
Almond milk
Uh,
is deadly, man.
I
Deadly.
know it, and um, yeah, that one was, not a big one, but I've been off and on the raw dairy and the dairy, like a low pasteurized milk that we can get here locally, um, but yeah, now it's just strictly, the dairy and
Do
the
you
butter.
ferment your dairy?
No, but I definitely need to learn that for
Could
sure.
you grab some kefir grains from someone? Have you got a
Oh,
friend?
well, you know what? Now this was years ago. I have a box still that are the grains themselves that I bought. I mean, some yogurt and some, yeah, the kefir grains,
I
from,
mean, what they were they dehydrated? They must have
I
been.
guess they were. No, they
Yeah.
might not, they might be bad now. But this was like, I mean, golly, this was pre 2013. I've had these boxes and I've just
Okay.
been keeping them and then they
Well,
probably, I
you
mean,
never know. You never know. These cultures are remarkable. They can survive under some really extreme circumstances. So if they're properly dehydrated and they're properly stored, they might still be alive and you might be able to revive them.
yeah, that would be interesting to see. But yeah, I did
The easiest thing to do would be to like go online and look on for Facebook or something for your local Western A Price group, or
uh-huh,
just local foodie types, and just say, anyone got any kefir grains, milk kefir grains? They've want Because they grow, they expand. Obviously, they're alive, and every time you feed them your raw milk, they
right,
grow. They eat the lactose and they grow. So you end up with more and more and more until in the end you're like, I've got too many for my jar. I need to get rid of some of these. People just give them away.
right, yeah.
Yeah. It's
So,
so easy to make milk kefir. It's a like 24-hour thing. When you've soured your milk, then it's infinitely more digestible and you get probiotic hit and less sugar, less lactose. So it's just better for you.
so I know you mentioned having children. I know that a lot of kids are really picky, and
Yeah.
um, having been in this functional medicine health coaching program, the founder of the program, she talks a lot about that. The dairy, and I forget which component of the dairy and um, the gluten.
Gluten-free, casein-free.
Yes, thank you. But together are like just hitting the opiate receptors, and a lot of
Oh
kids are
yeah.
medicating
Yeah,
with
yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
constant grab for these foods, right?
Yeah,
Like you
yeah,
said, the beige foods, and they're almost crazy,
yeah,
nutty
yeah, yeah, yeah,
for this
completely.
stuff because they constantly are trying to medicate.
Yeah, yeah. They're like junkies.
Yeah, it is. And you know, the mac and cheese, the cheese and crackers, all of these food items, and that specific combination and which receptors that they attach to. Um, and parents don't even necessarily realize that this is their child's way of self-medicating. How do you because I have some nieces and nephews who are incredibly food picky, and I've got clients with grandchildren or, you know, who's because I'm a body worker, whose kids and grandkids are super picky and only want that type of food.
Mm.
How do you encourage or suggest parents go about, you know, even getting their child to consume a cup of meat stock?
Yeah. Well, you got to lead by example. And the earlier you start, the easier it is. And you just start to cook with stock. You just start to use stock. People. I've got a clients at the moment, and she's got a 5-year-old. He gets very hangry. He gets angry if he doesn't get the sugar, and she's managed to just wean him off everything except raisins. Raisins are his fix at the moment, so that's her leverage,
Mhm.
right?
Mm.
And she just makes everyone a warm drink in the morning. Daddy has a coffee, she has a cup of tea, and she says, "There's your warm drink, darling," and puts down his cup of stock. Everybody has a hot drink. We're just leading by example here. This is how we do it in this house. So if that's what there is. The first thing in the morning, that's what you drink is a little warm chicken stock. It's soothing. It's salty. It's nice. They can put his own salt in if he likes. They can pour their own cream in if they like. They can break their own egg in if they like. When you get to that phase where they want to start getting involved, get them involved with it. But yeah, when they're really, really picky and they've only want like 5 different colors of food, that's when you got to start thinking about, when are you going to break the horse? That sounds terrible. When are you going to break the horse in? Right? When are we going to actually? It's not the kid you've got the beef with, right? It's their gut bugs.
Yeah,
It's not the kid that's at fault. It's not the kid. It's their gut bugs. The gut microbiome is out of whack. It's broken. They've got leaky gut. They're being poisoned by their own river of toxicity in their gut. It's getting through into their brain, making them act crazy, right?
yeah,
What you do is you just start on full gaps. So like you just start substituting. So instead of having those pancakes, we're having these pancakes, and they happen to be made of, a banana and a spoon of nut butter with 4 eggs, right? So there's no wheat in there, right?
right.
So
Yeah,
you start to substitute, right? And you do a few months of like, oh, we don't have crumpets anymore. There are none in the cupboard, but we can make some waffles. Come on, let's make some waffles, and let's make some waffles together. You got to get involved. You've got to be cooking. You can't be going out and buying your food. You've got to be cooking. Like, if you're not cooking, then it's not for you, and I can't help you. But it's not that difficult to whip up some eggs and make an omelette, a cheese omelette or whatever. You know,
yeah,
um, and it's not that difficult to slap on a couple of burgers, and to put a bit of sauerkraut on the side, or make some fermented ketchup, or have you know roast fried onions with some sausages, and a stick of cheese with an apple that's peeled, or to make apple puree with lard and chicken stock,
mm,
and to serve that with a bit of cultured cream, or to make ice cream. Like I said, you can make the Gap sweet things like fat bomb frosting with a carrot cake and date paste and some sweet yummy things that are really rich and delicious and sweet and satisfying, that are full of fats and full of sugars, but it's the right kind of fats and the right kind of sugars, right?
mhm.
And to begin with, they might taste it and spit it out and go, "I don't want that." It's like, but that's what there is. And you've got to be a bit like Nanny McPhee. That, I don't know if you've seen that film, Nanny McPhee. There's 7 wild kids with an ineffectual, weak father with no mother figure. And Nanny McPhee comes in, and she just says it like it is. And there's the food. And this is what we're having. And, you have to bargain. Okay, people be like, but that's like bribery. You're bribing your kids. It's like, I'm teaching them negotiation skills, actually. Like, you know, we're going to have this soup or this stew, and there's some little pieces of halloumi fried cheese on top that you can fish out with a spoon, or maybe you even use some of the toasted bread, dreaded grains. Maybe you just use a really, really thin piece of sourdough, fry it in tallow, cover it with butter, cut it into tiny pieces, and sprinkle the croutons on top of the soup or the stew, so that, yeah, they get a tiny fix of croutons, but they're also eating the good stuff, the stock, the good fats,
Right,
the
yeah.
good meats, the proteins. So, you're bargaining all the time. We're going to have this, and then you can have your ice cream, or then you can have your gaps cake, or then you can have your treat, or you can have a new pen, or you can have 5 minutes on your favorite video game. Yes, we're going to bargain to begin with, just to get those good foods into their bodies, because after a little while, their body's natural, innate uh, survival instincts are going to kick in, and actually they're going to want those foods. After some months, the kids start saying, "Can I have my warm drink, please?
Hmm.
Can I have some more soup, please, mummy?" But you have to break them in. It sounds terrible. And quite often they're going to have some kind of healing crisis when they stop taking the drugs,
Yeah.
right? They'll have some kind of breakdown. It'll look like flu or a cold. Their symptoms will come flooding back. They might get worse with their ADHD, or they might get worse with their migraines or their itchy skin or whatever, right?
Mhm.
But especially if it's like a cold or flu like symptoms, right? That we call that die off, and it's actually a Herxheimer reaction. It's because they've stopped eating the poisons, their bodies are starting to heal, so they have an inflammatory reaction, which is natural. We don't want to stop the inflammatory reaction, we just want to manage it. And
Mhm.
if they're off their food for a while, it's like, okay, great, this is a great opportunity to do intro. Yeah, so you
Yeah.
you use that time of, they're not very well, right? When you bring in when they say, "I'm hungry, I want something," they get a little cup of stock. And if they're like, "No, I don't want that," I've seen kids actually fast for 7 days because they're like, "No, I don't want that, no, I don't want that." But eventually when they do start it, they heal really quickly.
Mm. So I know that you have a cooking school, an online cookery, and I think before um, we were recording, you mentioned working with people all over, right? I'm in the States,
Yeah.
and I know definitely if I had support, it would have been easier to implement, right? Just
Yeah.
ideas, because even today, I'm like, oh, what are we eating? Well, we're gonna have hamburgers. Like, and I'm like, and every time I sit down for just the hamburgers and the fruits and vegetables that um we eat, oh my gosh, this is the best freaking hamburger. Right? Your taste buds change to
Yeah.
where these simple spices, and I don't know if herbs are included. I mean,
Yeah.
really just use sea salt. We don't really even use onion or garlic. And it's almost too much. I'll smell for days. Like it stays with me. So
Okay.
I've learned for those, at least maybe cooked. And seems like some onion powder is not as potent as like me cutting up an onion, but that could be different again. If I stayed consistent with the 3 to 5. I mean, I'm gonna go make meat stock today. Because, it's something that we do, but not regularly and consistently, and definitely know that I have I would guess, some leaky gut or some gut microbiome dysbiosis, just a little bit of bloating, just after something so simple to eat that isn't even grains, that I'll feel that, you know, um,
And we also need to remember the fats and ferments are really key. So if
the
you're having a
fats ferment.
burger, look at the burger and go, okay, where's my fats? Where's my ferments? Have an extra stick of butter with it. Have a little splash of kimchi or some sauerkraut or some kind of pickles, something fermented.
Yeah. Um,
Fats and ferments, fats and ferments, fats and ferments, really key.
okay. And because the fats we have down, like we've got our lard going. I don't know if bacon's a thing. We eat some bacon and we save our lard, and we usually cook with that, and I'll mix that with some ghee. So definitely, and lots of grass-fed butter. Um, so you have the Timeless Cookery, right, online. We see people from all over. And does that include like part education coupled with like cooking skills or just recipe? Like, can you share a little bit about your
Yeah,
program?
yeah. What it looks like Timeless Cookery Club is a subscription, a monthly subscription, and it's £30, so $40. I don't know how much that is in American. £33, and then you get access to the Gaps app, right? That I've created this Gaps app, and on the Gaps app, there's like the core teachings, which is 12-hour long cookery demonstrations as I'm lecturing about why we're doing this. You know, why do we have to do this? We're doing this because, and when you know the why and the how, it's really easy to just go, yeah, I'm totally going to do that. It's really easy. So there's 12-hour long lecture cookery demos. Then there's about 50 short, quick how to reminder videos. How do you do this? How do you do that? So yeah, videos showing you how to do the cooking on the Gaps app. And then there's a support group, which is on Facebook still at the moment, which I'm trying to sort that out into something else, where people post their questions and their triumphs and their disasters and their when they get if they have a healing crisis and they're like, oh, what you know, people post all sorts in the support group. And then if people want me to work with them specifically to tailor the protocol to their specific needs, then I have a coaching program, which is again a monthly subscription, which is £240 a month, which is not very much. You know, we meet once a week on a Zoom like this and make a plan. We talk on WhatsApp, and really you've got not 24/7 access, but you can text me and voice message me anytime you like with an idea and get, you know, eventually I'll get back to you. And so that's my coaching package. Basically, that's it. That's what it looks like.
Well, I know that um, you know, love to find, and I'm sure the algorithm, puts me in contact through social media with the people that they know I would be interested in, which is right how I found you.
Right, yeah.
And your posts are so inspiring and they're fun.
Great. Yeah, that's the point,
Fun.
because
Yeah, we
laughter's the best medicine.
on and you feel good. And I'm 46. I don't know, like how old are your children? And
I've got an 18 and a 21-year-old, and I'm 56 now.
okay. And so yeah, you posted something about, being closer to 60 and feeling great. And in America, it doesn't, when you look around, you definitely don't see that, especially in Kentucky. And I would say most people are barely feeling even just fine.
I think America's got some real issues in their food system. There has been a kind of weaponization almost of the food system all over the world, all over the West, I would say, but in America especially, it's really shocking. We've got to be ever so we've got to be ever so aware of what's going in, and also make sure that we get all the toxins out. So I mean, I do use things like binders to bind onto toxins and help get them out, like diatomaceous earth, like zeolite clay. You know, I keep charcoal in the medicine cabinet all the time. Sometimes I use chlorine dioxide solution, sometimes I use methylene blue. I'm
Mhm.
using things all the time to try to mitigate the poisons that are going in. And coffee enemas are excellent for keeping
Yeah,
your liver
that's
clean. And
that's
when your liver
funny.
clean is, yeah, when your liver is
Those
clean, then your
keep
blood
coming
is
up.
clean.
I'm sorry. They just keep the coffee enemas keep coming up. I'm like, oh, I've got to do that. But
Yeah,
what
yeah,
did you
yeah.
say when the liver's clean?
Yeah, when the liver's clean, the blood is clean, and then the brain's clear, and then you can think straight, and it's nice. It's a nice feeling. If ever I feel a bit poisoned, I just do a coffee enema.
And it's relatively mess free, easy. You just, I'm sure, just
I
like brushing your teeth.
Yeah, no, exactly. I do it. I mean, all you need is 40 minutes of uninterrupted, like peace and quiet. And I usually run myself a hot salt bath at the same time and have a soak. I usually have a soak and get the magnesium. That's
Hmm.
another way that we can get poisons out, is to have a really good soak in a hot bath with some bicarbonate of soda, some Epsom salts, with borax, with, we can use with diatomaceous earth in the bath. You can put stuff in the bath that actually sucks out the poisons while you're just lying there listening to a nice podcast. It's a really good idea. People need to really do that.
Yeah, and now you wouldn't, and golly, I could probably ask you a gazillion more questions. Um, you wouldn't do the coffee enema while in the water,
Yeah,
yeah?
yeah, I do. Yeah, you introduce
Okay,
it while you're lying
okay,
in the bath,
gotcha.
relaxing. And
Mhm,
then, when you're ready, you get up and go to the toilet.
gotcha.
Yeah.
And you know what's fascinating? I know you mentioned like over here in America, even you all get different Cheerios.
Cheerios.
Well, yeah, I mean, like even some of the processed foods that, right, are manufactured here, like some of these cereals that so
It's
many kids eat
deadly.
in their breakfast,
Deadly.
but you all have a cleaner version
Yeah.
in the
The
United States. I mean,
reading the ingredients. Yeah. It's
I
shocking.
it is. It's unbelievable that they are okay to feed these ingredients to the children here and the humans here, or the people over here in America. But yeah,
It's actually criminal,
it is
really,
criminal.
Elizabeth. Yeah. Yeah.
And that cereal was never something that we bought. I remember reading a gazillion years ago. It's equivalent to eating the cardboard box. People eat the cardboard box it comes in.
That's what Dr. Natasha wrote in her book. That was one
That
of
must
the
have
early
been
chapters. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
must have been the chapter I really remember because I was like, no cereal.
Yeah.
And we always pretty much started with eggs and bacon and the meats and the sausages and so anyway. Well, all right. So I want to make sure people can find you online. And I'm so grateful that I got to meet you here through the
You're welcome.
computer. I love the benefits of social the internet, right?
Yeah.
The
It's really
internet.
nice to meet like-minded people, and yeah, it's great to be able to work with people all over the world. And I'm loving my work at the moment, even though I'd like to limit my time on the computer. But yeah, I can work with people all over the world, New Zealand, even. We work it out, me very early in the morning, them late at night or whatever. And you'll find me at Timeless Cookery on Instagram and Timeless Cookery on YouTube, and my Facebook page, Emma Goodwin. Because I did have a Timeless Cookery Facebook page, but it got a ghost in the machine on the messenger, so I had to kind of drop it. But yeah, if you do go to Timeless Cookery, which is on Facebook, you'll find me there, Emma Goodwin. So just come and find me on my personal page if you want to say hello.
And do you have a website just
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
specific? Okay. So it's
www.timelesscookery.com.
all predominantly timeless cookery except for
Yeah, exactly. Because I wanted people to think of it as being a timeless experience. It's timeless. It doesn't have to take a lot of time, but it's also alluding to the timelessness of our ancestral wisdom and our ancestral heritage. This is how we originally would eat. It's actually very cost effective to eat this way because you're taking the cheap cuts and the offal, because we eat a lot of offal, and you know you're chucking it in this magic power pot of potion, this cauldron. You're stretching a chicken for a whole week, making how many different dishes with all of that lovely stock. It's just a really cost effective and excellent way, a tasty as well. It's like French cuisine. It really is really tasty.
Well, I mean, it sounds really tasty. And, I know, when you start to integrate some of these foods, there's no room for the other stuff.
Yeah,
Right.
no, I don't want bread. Sometimes we have white rice. Sometimes, you're like, oh, especially women of a certain age, like I say, I'm 56, I'm get, 5 years past, 6 years past menopause. Sometimes I'm like, I need some sugar. I want that sugar. So I cook the rice in stock. I smother it with butter. Maybe I'll make it into a rice pudding or something with some cultured cream and a little bit of honey, and I'll bake it in the oven with some cinnamon on top, and then I've got like a rice pudding I can enjoy. Or, you know, cultured cream and honey. Sometimes I have date paste or some raisins. I do have sweet stuff, but I I don't. It's only once in a while that I think, oh, I just need a little sweet treat, you know.
And
Just have a
really quick, one last question. I know you've mentioned honey multiple times.
Mm.
Maple syrup?
well. I mean, it's not strictly GAPS maple syrup because it's a disaccharide, because it's
Okay.
a it's like a fructose, it's a sucrose, but or glucose. But I use molasses sometimes because it's jam packed full of minerals,
Mhm.
you know. But I only use it to say sweeten some ginger biscuits I'm making or something like that. You know, just a little spoonful, not, I don't labor it, lay it on thick, you know.
Yeah.
And raw honey, local raw honey is like a medicine, you know. And there will come a point when you eat enough pickles and lacto fermented vegetables that your whole palate changes, and you'll lick a honey spoon and go, oh my God, that's so sweet. I can't, it's too much.
Yeah.
Because your palate changes and your biome changes, and with that your brain changes, and with that your perception changes, and with that the world looks like a whole different place.
Yeah, I know. I know originally they thought, right, the brain was communicating with the gut, and really, right, it's the opposite. What is it? 90% of the communication is from the gut to the brain.
Is it? I don't know,
I
but that
think
sounds
70 or 90. I just know that it's, you know, really important to have a healthy gut. Like sometimes, like, as you said, it's the microbes that are, some would say willpower. Well, willpower doesn't always, it's not always a thing. If your microbes are screaming for sugar to stay alive,
yeah, man.
they're going to overpower, right? We're
Oh yeah.
trillions of microbes. We're one human. We're more microbes than we are human.
Oh yeah, yeah. You're absolutely right. Yeah. And
And
that's what we've got to remember with the kids. Because
yeah,
when the kids are playing up and behaving, you know, and you're like, oh my God, what's wrong with that child? What's wrong with that child is their microbiome's broken. There's nothing wrong with that little one. They might look like a complete crazed monster, but it's not their fault. We've been feeding them the wrong foods, and now it's going to stop, and we're going to feed them the right foods, and you watch them come alive. You watch those children blossom and come alive and give you eye contact and start talking to you normally. It's just
yeah.
such a pleasure.
Yeah, I know that, as I mentioned before the recording began, the handle program, they really don't want to even attach, you can have the diagnosis, but they don't want to attach you to that because, again, so much comes back to nutrition and lifestyle, the stressors are, like an environment, all kinds of the toxins, and addressing all of those pieces. And then I remember now you mentioned the magnesium baths, that this was, in 2008, I went through this program, like I said, called Handle. And one of the things, that you just mentioned, you said something that, one of the things that they also, like, with this gut microbiome, talked about, there was a woman in Minnesota. She said if you came to her with her child, she could almost guess the birth experience, right? Because a lot of that and that microbiome comes through having a vaginal birth. And
Yeah.
if the children don't receive that, those babies are born cesarean, or things get disrupted, the antibiotics given to some moms during, all this is incredibly impactful on your baby's gut microbiome.
Massive.
Yeah.
Yeah, massive, absolutely massive. And it's criminal how they just dish out the antibiotics in birthing rooms. It's shocking.
Yeah, I know.
If I had both my kids at home, and it would have been my worst nightmare to go to hospital. That was like my birth plan was, I just want to be at home and be left alone, please. That was my birth plan.
Yeah.
And luckily I managed it, even though I wasn't very well, I managed it.
And your first one was born, how old? How old were you when your first was born?
Oh, I was 35.
35. So, over here, you'd be over the hill,
Yeah.
and they consider you high risk, and they would never. encourage a home birth.
Right.
And I think do you know Hinsey Goer? I think she was from Europe, Hinsey Goer.
Don't know.
She's an author, and she wrote like the general, anyway, she talked about in that book, because one of mine was born at home, how over in Europe, they definitely, you're high risk, you're better off at home, actually. You know, they wouldn't do that over there the way they do. They might, but not like they do over here. Oh, you're 35, you're over the hill, you're high risk automatically at 35. And, you know, a woman 35 and older is far fares way better with less intervention.
Oh yeah.
Like, once you start throwing those interventions in, you know, one intervention typically leads to the next when it comes to childbirth, and they love the interventions over here. So,
Jeez, yeah. Tell me about it.
um,
We've got to start taking responsibility for ourselves, you know, and
yeah,
supporting each other in this journey of self-knowing and self-discovery. And it's the most empowering thing to give birth on your own without any
oh,
interference.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's just mind blowing. I don't even, I mean, you can't even really put it in words when you get to, when you have a child on your own.
No, we are the creators. We
Yeah.
are the creators. We're portals,
Yeah.
bringing forth life.
Yeah.
And we need to be left alone and supported by the radical midwives or the whoever, you know. And there will be teams of medical people out there who know what's going on and who want to just, you know, be there for the gentle people around the campfires, you know, that don't want to be involved with the big pharma thing. That's coming. It's coming.
Yeah.
There are some beautiful midwives out there.
Yeah, it is. Even one of my daughter's really good friends' mothers, she's an MD, but also transitioning back to, like, all her babies were born at home, but transitioning back to just working, you know, doing these holistic therapies and to being a home birth midwife. But
Right.
she had all
Right.
this, you know, other knowledge, which is really awesome. So I'm so glad to know there are people out there like you and that are helping others try to navigate their way back to health. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. It's been lovely.
Yeah, likewise, and make sure you find GAPS Coach Emma at Timeless Cookery on Instagram. She's got great information there, and then her website, and then also Emma Goodwin on Facebook.
Thanks so much. All right, Elizabeth.
Bye bye.